Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. Today is day number 8. We're almost at the end. Tomorrow, we're going to wrap things up, but don't fret. We have another challenge coming up starting on Monday. Kickoff is on Monday. The first challenge is released on Tuesday, so be hyped for that. My name is Howard Pinsky. I'm a Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe. I've also officially caught the cold that's been going around. I was doing so well. My wife and daughter were both sick. I was avoiding it. I failed. I have failed. So if I start sniffing or coughing or if I fall on the floor, I apologize. But a big good morning to everyone joining me live this morning or afternoon or evening on Behance, including we've got Jack and Simone and Fatima and Dahanjay, possibly. If I mispronounce anyone's name, I do apologize. We've got Noor and Marissa and Tim and Agnes and Dee and Eric and Van, Jennifer, Julia. I don't want to miss anyone. Eduardo and Mafalda. And Josh just came in. If you're joining me live, let me know where you're tuning in from. I am streaming live right now from beautiful and a little bit hot Los Angeles. But we have some fun stuff for you today. Today's challenge is all about jokes, and we're going to focus on designer jokes. So if you're good at puns, I know Tim is. Tim's in the chat, and he's good at puns. But if you have puns about designs, throw it in the chat, because I'm going to use some of that through today's challenge. All right, Adriano's also dealing with the flu. High five. I promise I won't get you sick through the stream. At least I hope not. But let me hop over to my screen. Here we go. And this is the challenge landing page, behance.net/challenge/XD. If you are a Photoshop user, there's also a Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge as well. You can join that when you're not doing the XD challenge. Now, we usually have a big blue register button at the top, but because this challenge is coming to an end tomorrow, that's kind of just a chat with community button until Monday rolls around, and you'll be able to register for that one. And when you do, you'll get notified when new challenges are released, and we do release those every single day, Monday to Friday, somewhere around 8 o'clock in the morning. And as I mentioned, we do have the community chat, which is powered by Discord, and we have about 20,000 designers in Discord right now, which is crazy. There's about 728 online at this very moment, including a few mentors and some folks from Adobe, but 20,000 have joined. That's crazy, and they're all super friendly. There's channels to check out the details on the challenges if you want to find out what's new in XD, and we have new stuff coming up definitely this year, or pro tips, or if you have questions, if you want to share your challenges, either the current one or the past one, there's some channels here. If you just want to chat, you can do that as well. So it's a good time. Join us in Discord, have some fun. Even if you're not participating in the challenge, you can hop into Discord and have a good time. We've got Nitish from India, and if I'm not mistaken, it is midnight in India right now. Thank you, Nitish, and everyone else joining me from India for tuning in so late, or early, I suppose. But yeah, and Patrick, thank you. Thank you for the kind words, assuming that was to me. If not, well, thank you on behalf of whoever that was towards. So you can, again, every single day, Monday to Friday, we're going to be here live, 11:30 Pacific time. And then, just like I mentioned, you can share your work. So what do we have planned for today? Well, we're at the second last day. And if I scroll down all the way here, we've got voice recognition. And the prompt for today is to design the joke of the day experience for a comedy app. Use voice triggers to ask for a specific type of joke and speech playback to get a response. And that's one of the cool things about Adobe XD is that it has voice-powered prototyping. So if you're designing either for an Alexa device or Siri or any of those other voice recognition applications, or if you're just building out your own and you want to have voice-controlled navigation, you can do that directly in XD, and it's always really fun to demo this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to Adobe XD, and we are going to get designing. So again, this is the template, and this is the prompt to design a joke of the day experience for a comedy app. You can keep score down below as you're building out your challenges. You get extra points if you use your voice, and if you want to, add some additional XD puns, I'd love to hear those. As long as they're safe and family friendly, throw them in the chat. I want to hear your design puns. I want to hear your XD puns. But don't laugh about the lack of dark mode. That'll come eventually, but that's not funny. And you have some inspiration down here, all pulled from Dribble. So there's some, pretty cute inspiration and applications that we're going to kind of riff off of. So with that said, I'm going to grab my Artboard tool over here to the left, and I'm simply going to click. There we go. And now I have an artboard, and it created the last artboard that I did create, which was an iPhone 10 or 10s artboard. And that's mainly because I have an iPhone 10 S, or I don't know what this is, iPhone 10 something or other. And it's a lot easier for me to preview that prototype directly using the Adobe XD app on my phone. We already have some jokes coming in. What do you call a path that eats other paths? Hannibal Vector. I like that, Tim. I don't know where you got that from, but I like it. All right. So we are going to start just by kind of dressing up this artboard just to give it a little bit of style. And I'm going to grab my rectangle and very simply just drag out something that looks kind of like this right across my artboard. Maybe I'll even pull it out just a little bit, just so we have a little bit of overflow. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can add a little bit of a curve to this shape. And to do that, I'm going to simply double click on this path right here. Let me zoom in so you can really see what's going on. And we can go ahead and add a point anywhere on this along these lines. So I'm going to press right here. Now, if I were to grab this and just move it around, it's a very sharp line, which if you want sharp lines, go for it, right? But I want nice and curved lines. So I'm going to double click on this point to turn it into a curve. And now I can very easily just move this around, and I have this nice curved shape in the background of my app. Now, of course, I kind of want a different color. So I'm going to turn off the border, and for the color, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool, shortcut key I, and maybe I'll just, sample this color over here, because it's a nice, like, reddish pink color, which looks pretty cool. I like it. It kind of gives it a fun vibe. So the next thing we might want to add is maybe we might want to change the background color of this artboard so it's not pure white, maybe just a little touch of gray. So I'm going to double click on the background and over to the fill. I'm just going to drop the color just a touch so it's a little bit gray. Nothing too crazy. We don't want to go too crazy because if we go like this, it just doesn't look nice. So it's white with a touch of gray in it, just like that. And now we can go ahead and add maybe a navigation bar at the bottom, just down here. And this is where we're going to house our microphone icon and maybe a few other things. So I'm going to hop into Nucleo, which is a third-party icon manager that I use. And of course, there are plugins within XD that you can, I think, let me just hop into my plugins panel. We've got Icon Drop by Icon Scout. It's a pretty good one. They do have premium icons, but they also have free icons as well. So maybe for this, I want some sort of like a theater icon. This will be the jokes screen. I'll move this over to my navigation bar, and I'll probably crank up the size a little bit, somewhere around 32 pixels. Beautiful. And I might want, I might want this to be the same color. Great. And now maybe you might want to write your own. So let's just type out write to see what we get. We got a typewriter. Okay. We'll run with that. We'll run with a typewriter because jokes have gone back for centuries. So I'm going to, again, crank this up to about 32 pixels. Make sure everything lines up really nicely, and XD is letting me know with the smart guides that everything is lining up. And let's actually put it about 40 pixels from the side. Make sure this one is. We can also use our guides to guide us through the process. And now maybe in the center we might want a microphone icon. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. I want this one to really stand out. So I'm going to make sure it's centered just like that. And I might want the color of this icon to be red or this pinkish color, and then maybe in the middle let's go ahead and find a microphone. That looks pretty good right about there. And just like I did with all the other ones, I'm going to increase the size, change the color, and let's go for 32 pixels, just like I did before. Beautiful. All right, so our navigation bar is nicely set up right now. I'd probably make a few additional changes, but for now, I'll leave it as is. We want to get to the meat of this application, which are the jokes. So we're going to kind of have, let me show the inspiration. We're going to do something very similar to this, where you kind of have the jokes kind of spread out amongst cards. Each day there'll be a new joke, but if you do want an additional joke, you can definitely swipe or press a button to get to those. So I'm going to hop back over to my artboard. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, make sure everything lines up really nicely, and just draw one out like that. Perfect. All right, so we've got this rectangle. We might want to round out the corners just a little bit. We'll go for about 18, possibly 18 pixels. And we're going to turn off the border. Now it is blending in a little bit with the background, so I am going to add a drop shadow, but I will warn that drop shadows are very tricky to get right. You definitely don't want something like this, and you certainly don't want something like this. That's just drop shadow 101, don't do that. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank up the Y axis so it kind of goes down a little bit, but I'm also going to really pump up the blur, so somewhere around 26, something like that, and then drop the opacity just a little bit, just so it's just very subtle. So it's not too harsh and it's not blending in with the background. It just separates the card from the background just a little bit, and it's not hard on the eye. And of course, if you want to get really creative, you can add some color behind there, but I'm going to leave it as is. So we've got this card. We also need some additional information, including the joke. So I'm going to grab my text tool, and I'm going to, let's say, instead of a simple point text, which would be a click, I'm actually going to click and drag to create an area text. And again, everything's lining up really nicely. And this is a joke, right? And maybe, just for this example, I'm going to scroll in the chat. Where did Tim's joke go? Here it is. Here's Tim's joke. I'm going to grab this from the chat, and I'm going to hop back over to Adobe XD and paste it. Now, of course, this is way too big and really in our face, so I'm just going to drop this down a touch. Maybe change the color to a nice gray, just like that. That looks pretty good. Thank you, Tim, for this joke. Get rid of those quotes. Perfect. All right. So now that we've got this first joke in place, we might want a button, right, to get to our next joke. So again, grab my rectangle, draw one out. Maybe I'll round out the corners quite a bit. Maybe drop this in a touch. I'll set the color to this lovely pink. And then inside, next joke. Set this to bold, to white. Beautiful. Maybe I'll drop the text size down just a little bit, and there we go. All right, so we now have our first joke in place. Now, how do we go about getting additional jokes? Well, we could create a repeat grid, right, which we're going to do, and we could manually enter all the jokes, but we're going to use one of my favorite plugins that I showed off at least once during this challenge, is the Google Sheets plugin. But before I do that, I'm going to hop into my layers and make sure that I have everything named properly. So this is going to be joke, and this is just the text layer. Maybe I'll move this up a little bit, and I'll group the button just so everything's organized. And this will be button, and this will be called card. All right, so now everything is nicely organized and named in my layers panel. I'm going to select all these layers, and I have them all selected. And I want to hit the repeat grid button over to the right, which will allow us to drag out additional ones. Boop, there we go. So now I can just drag out additional cards across the screen. Let me zoom out so we can really drag out a few additional ones like that. And maybe I'll decrease the padding a little bit so I can kind of see one of them on the right side, right? There we go. So now that we have our cards, we might also want some sort of a title for this application. So let me grab my text tool one more time before we wrap things up, and maybe this will be design. Oops, I have caps lock on, I think. Design, right? And then jokes. Wow, I can't spell. All right, there we go. And maybe this one is going to be Brandon Grotesque, which is a great sounding font. And this one I'll keep as Poppins. I'll make it a little, maybe this one I'll make a little bit larger. There we go, just like that. And I got design. Make this a little bit bigger. Perfect. All right, that looks a little bit better. I'll probably tinker with that just a touch a little bit later, but for now, I'm kind of digging what this is looking like. All right, so now that we've got our title, we've got our cards, we've got our microphone icon, which I might want to move down just a touch. There we go. We need to load in some additional cards. So I've got over in Chrome, I've got a design puns. I guess that layer's name is puns, but that's okay. I've got this spreadsheet that I set up. I just grabbed a bunch of design puns that I found on the internet. And I'm gonna copy this, hop back over to Adobe XD. I'm gonna make sure to select that repeat grid that contains that text layer. And then in my plugins panel down at the bottom, I'm gonna find the Google Sheets plugin. If you don't have that installed, press the plus button at the top, search for it. There's also a ton of other plugins that you can download and have fun with. But this one, I'm gonna expand, paste the public link, and if you do have a local CSV file with a bunch of jokes, you can load that in as well. Continue. And in this case, we only need to map out the joke. So in this case, the joke text layer, which was named joke, did not match any of the column names. That's because I named it puns, but in this case, I can simply just map it manually to puns. If it was both named the same, they would map automatically. And I'm gonna press apply. And there we go. And it's automatically pulled in those jokes, and loaded them into our repeat grid. And the cool thing about repeat grids is everything stays in sync. So if I wanted the text to be a little bit larger, I can very easily do that, and it propagates across all the different cards, which is really nice. I can also jump in here and maybe bold. I might want this bold. There we go. And I might want to change the color so it really stands out. Fantastic. And there we go. And it did not affect any of the other ones. Now, you will come across a time where you might want to manually override some of the styling. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment. But let's get to the good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this artboard over to the right. And essentially, we want a few different things. The first thing we want to be able to do is swipe to the next joke. So in this case, I'm going to go to prototype mode. I'm going to select the repeat grid. Maybe I'll just select this card here, drag this to the second artboard. And over in my properties, I don't want a tap trigger. I actually want a drag trigger, which will allow a user to just drag to the next card. We'll have auto animate. That is the default action. Now at this point, nothing's really going to happen if I try to drag this over because I didn't make any changes to that second artboard. So in that case, I'm going to simply just grab the repeat grid and move it over just like that. And now if I hop into prototype mode, or my prototype, I can preview it. I can just swipe over to the next card just like that. I can also go through and maybe add a tap trigger to next joke. There we go. This, instead of drag, will be tap. We'll do auto animate. Let's go for a lovely snap and 0.4 seconds. So now I can either drag just like this. I can also just click or tap and the next joke comes into play. But of course, one of the big aspects of this challenge is to use our voice. So we might want to be able to ask Siri, or you might want to be able to ask this application, whatever it might be called, to show me a joke about text, right? So I'm going to duplicate one more time, and I might want to drag this over until I have that Times New Roman, just like that. I want this one in plain view, and this is the one that it's going to navigate to. Now, how do we wire this up? Well, I'm going to hop into, I'm still in prototype mode. I'm going to select the button at the bottom. I'm going to drag this handle over to the third artboard, which contains that new joke. Now, instead of a tap or a drag, we actually want voice, and this will allow us to enter our command. So tell me a joke about, wow, type. There we go. And we can do auto animate, we'll do snap, and we'll do a duration of 0.4 seconds. So all you have to do now to play this is just press play. And once that's hooked up, you're gonna hold down your space bar on your keyboard and you're gonna just talk. Tell me a joke about type. And there he goes. It automatically navigates to that specific joke. Now, what if we wanted Adobe XD to actually read this joke back to us? So here's what we're gonna do. Within prototype mode, we're going to select the entire artboard, just like this. And we're going to, instead of dragging the blue handle over to another artboard, we're simply going to tap on it, just like that. And that will allow us to choose a time transition. We're going to give it a delay of 0 seconds because we want that to kick off immediately. And instead of transition or auto animate or overlay, we actually want speech playback. And this will allow XD to talk back to us. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy this joke, right? And paste it inside of the speech section. And we also have a bunch of different voices we can use, but let's see what Joanna sounds like. I'm gonna play this. Tell me a joke about type. There we go. Hopefully you heard that. Hopefully the audio is coming through. Let me increase the sound just a little bit. Tell me a joke about type. There we go. Super cool. You can have a lot of fun with this. But I did mention earlier, what if you wanted to override the styling of just one of the cards? So in this case, if I wanted maybe to really punch this joke home, I might want to change the styling of this to Times New Roman, right? But you're noticing that it changed it across everything, which we don't want it to do. So in that case, what I'm going to do, back in the first, it's very quiet. Well, I apologize. Back in the first repeat grid, right? I'm going to select the text layer that contains the Times New Roman, right? It's hard to see in this case. Let me actually move these out of the way just so we can really see what's going on. There we go. And I'm actually going to select this one and turn this into a component. So I'm going to right click and make component. None of you can hear it. I'm sorry. I promise it did work. But probably, actually, let me try this. Let me try this. Just to prove that it actually works. I'm going to crank up in Wirecast. I'm going to make sure to crank up the audio, because right now it's like at 25%. I'm going to crank it up to about 92%. Hopefully this works. Let's try this one more time. Tell me a joke about type.
Get with the times, New Roman.
Hopefully you heard that. It should have been a little bit louder, but I'm going to reduce this so I don't blast music in your ears. But hopefully that did work. Turn the music back on. All right. So we believe you. Thank you. Thank you for believing me. So I've gone ahead and converted the the text layer into what's it called? A component. And it also converted all of them into instances of those components. So now we can go into the instance that contains the Times New Roman, and I can just jump in here and change this to Times New Roman, right? Maybe I'll make this a little bit larger. Oh, we heard it. Sweet. I fixed it. There we go. So I've made that larger, and you're noticing it did not affect any of the others. So I can also make sure to go through, and this is the one here. Let me just make sure I have the right. So I've got 39 Times New Roman, perfect. Times New Roman, and 39. Oops. Oh, that one was not a component. That's why I broke it. I broke everything. So let me duplicate this over, drag this to where it needs to be. Beautiful. And make sure to wire this up just like we did before. Drag this over. We're going to have a voice trigger. Tell me a joke about type. Fantastic. And we do have this one here. I'm going to make sure to copy this. Copy. Set this at time, 0-second delay, speech playback. And let's this time go for, let's see what Joey sounds like. Now let me make sure to pause my music, increase the sound, push it live. Here we go. Tell me a joke about type.
Get with the times, New Roman.
Joey doesn't sound very exciting, but let's try, what does Justin sound like?
Get with the times, New Roman.
Don't like that one. Matthew?
Get with the times, New Roman.
None of them sound very exciting.
Get with the times, New Roman.
Oh, that's just creepy.
Get with the times, New Roman.
No. Kimberly?
Get with the times, New Roman.
No. None of these people can tell a joke.
Times, New Roman.
Okay, well, we'll stick with Joanna.
Get with the times, New Roman.
Okay, well, there it is. So that's pretty much, yeah, he doesn't sound very exciting, does he? Let me drop the sound back a little bit and put the music back on. Perfect. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see what all of you come up with all these jokes, and I want to see you get really creative with some of the jokes that you put into this application. And hopefully if we have time tomorrow, I will be going through and taking a look at some of them, but we have such limited time. There's so many streams going on. It's difficult, but throw your stuff into Discord, throw it on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Creative Challenge, or is it XD Daily Challenge? I don't remember, but the sickness is really hitting me right now. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what you all come up with. Definitely throw in some Adobe XD puns if you have any, without making fun of the lack of dark mode. But that's just gonna about do it for today. So let me just wrap up what we've done. We've created this pretty simple looking artboard with a navigation bar at the bottom. We've got these cards kind of extending off the right side of the screen, and we use the Google Sheets plugin to populate those cards with jokes that I found on random websites on the internet. Thank you, Tim. XD Daily Challenge. Thank you. And we've also had this card with a button if you just want to tap and move on to the next card. And when we play it, we can either, slide to the left to show a new joke. We can tap if we wanted to, or we can say, tell me a joke about type. And it navigates directly to that new joke, and it speaks it back to us. So that's just gonna about do it for today. I'm gonna go rest up a little bit. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We've got Anna and Ahanja and Tim and Joe and Abdur and Mafalda and Julia and Morella, and everyone else joining me live this morning. Thanks, everyone. I will see you all tomorrow morning at 11:30 Pacific time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of you come up with. So until next time, see you later.